Address to the inhabitants of America. Join Bards of War. Address to the inhabitants, Shady Groove of America. In the Matrix. These are the times that try men's souls. Welcome to episode 2, Common Sense. This is addressed to the inhabitants of America. We've got Shady Groove, Bards of War. This is July 22nd, 2020. Come on in here, Shady Groove, Bards of War. Let's continue our conversation on common sense. Come on in here, guys.
Hello, Patriots. Hey, Bards, thanks for joining us again, my friend, for the second episode in Common Sense.
Hey guys, how you doing? Glad everybody's here. We've got a show for you today, so buckle up.
Buckle up.
Yeah, and we'll get that intro right sometime. I'll just re-edit that for the podcast. But guys, welcome to Shady Groove, Bards of War, in the Matrix, here with the Common Sense inhabitants of America. Today, we are going to be going over the Declaration of Independence, folks.
And what it means and what you should understand about it.
There is no document, frankly, in the United States that's as important as the Declaration of Independence. We always talk about the Constitution, but we forget how significant and how fundamental the Declaration of Independence is. It is the document that establishes the framework for everything that we have, everything the Constitution does, and all of the rights that were added through the Bill of Rights. It's absolutely critical, and it's the one document, as you might expect, the left hates the most.
Yes, absolutely. And most people, there's over probably, I would guess, 80 to 90% of the people do not even have this document or the Constitution in their house. And once we go over this Declaration of Independence today, you will know more about the Constitution and Declaration of Independence than probably about 95% of the people in the United States of America.
And a lot of people don't realize that this is not taught in school to the younger generations. Some of us that are a little older had a lot more of this than anyone younger, but it's been weaponized by them not showing our younger generation these documents and what they mean.
And Patriots, it's important to really keep in mind that this is a document you need to go over regularly. This isn't just something to read once, put in the cupboard, or delete your tab on it and forget about it. This is a living, as far as living, it's living in us as a document. Well, we'll get into the living part of it because it's not living the way the left wants you to believe.
That's right.
But it is a document that has to live within us. And so we're also going to make this a 2-part show. It's just that important. So we're going to be doing today and next Wednesday dedicated to the Declaration of Independence.
That's right. So we're going to kind of go over the key concepts of the Declaration of Independence. And I think we've got some really good people to do it. And like I said, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. And that's Thomas Jefferson. So we need to remember what our founding fathers were going through at this time and what this document actually meant to the people. There's basically a bunch of concepts within this document. There's the structure, there's the 7 components in it, and there's the Declaration and how this Declaration of Independence and the Constitution works together. So this is, part 1 of that series. Scott.
Well, it's important as well to keep in mind the 56 signers that were on the Declaration of Independence. All of them were wealthy landowners at the time or business people. Every single one of them at the end ended up sacrificing nearly everything in their lives for that document. Don't forget that, Patriots. This is something that we too often wash over, and just how significant their personal and financial sacrifices were. Everything from imprisonment, death of their families, to the loss and bankruptcy of all that they had. They did that for this nation. So in a simple way of just bringing that forward, just to touch on, and those of you that follow me know that I'm becoming the mask Nazi, and I'm proud to be that.
I'm with Bards.
I mean, I'm serious, Patriots. If you can't understand how simple and important it is to defy the mask rule, when you consider what it represents in this whole thing, and that's what I hope that over the last, I think we all hope that over the next few weeks, as you really appreciate what went into these amazing documents. These are literally sacred documents for our nation, and to realize how much sacrifice was given to them and why it's important. When we say defy, defiance is at the core of the Declaration of Independence. The musket part of it, that came later. Defiance is where it all begins.
And I think that's a great point that you make right there, because what, especially whenever you're talking about what they sacrificed, because what they sacrificed to put this together and to proclamate, put their names on this document was pretty much everything, whether it be their land or their house or their reputation among their fellow patriots out there. Everything was attacked, much like what is happening right now. Everything was being burned down. The British were burning everything down because they didn't want us to have any institutions here as they moved backwards and we pushed them out. So this is everything they put on the line compared to right now, like what we're doing leading up to this election. This is a massive moment in the history of the United States of America, everyone. Really, really important.
And, people don't realize the total length of this document is it's just under 1,400 words, and about 400 words, essentially. The top paragraph and the bottom paragraph basically spell out the essence of the principles and beliefs upon which our United States was founded, folks. And then the words in between are basically the, what would you call that? The crimes that they said basically the king did.
Basically the usurpations of human freedom by the king. Like, these are the reasons that we are making these proclamations.
Yeah, so
it's so important. It really is, because keep in mind that at this point in time, historically, Patriots, they were still colonies. They were making a stand on paper and by their commitment of their signatures to the undersigned of this document to lead the colonies out from the empire.
That's right.
And to create a new nation. That in itself, the simple signing of this document declared them to death by the crown.
Scott, and I think the best way to word that is the states declared themselves independent sovereign states that will work together, correct? In this fight against the British.
Correct. So, guys, I'm going to deviate just a little bit here because we're coming up on bended knee time. So let's set up for the prayer of bended knee at 1:11 Eastern and 10:11, and then we're going to wrap back into this. Does that sound good?
Absolutely.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So, Patriots, as you know, what we're doing every week in addition is we are also we're including bended knee in this, which I think is just a really great development in the bended knee process, the whole bended knee experience, because as you know, bended knee is something that started over a year ago, actually about January of 2019. It's in over 27 countries now, and people together every single week, every Wednesday, taking the knee together, taking a knee to God. That is the only one I will take a knee to be clear. And we're there to pray together for unity, for strength, and for clarity. So as we roll up here on bended knee, I ask you just to kind of get your headspace right, whatever you need to do, clear your thoughts, and let's get ourselves focused on one of the most important and most powerful things we can possibly do across the entire world, which is pray together, pray in unity for the strength in God, for the strength and guidance, and for peace. It's really important. This is the way that we truly transform this darkness into light and bring, as the scripture says, we're bringing the saltiness back to salt, right? So this is where we are. So if you please join me in this prayer for bended knee. Heavenly Father, on this day, on this Wednesday, once again, as we take a knee to pray to you and for greatness and grace for all that we have and all that you provide. We are truly humbled. We are truly graced by your power, your amazing unity that you've given to us, this strength in a time of darkness to see light where darkness seems to lurk so heavy. Lord, please guide us and lift these burdens from us. Lift up this world so that we can see truly with eyes to see light and ears to see peace and joy. Lord, this is a difficult time as we see the chaos, the burning, and the destruction of all that we value. And yet we know within that there are great lessons. We're reminded that as we lose the things that we value, those are simply things, and that truly eternal life and eternal light is what rests within us. That the true soul and the true principles of liberty, the gifts of free will and sovereignty, were those that you gave us, and that no one can extinguish those flames within our hearts. Lord, we are reminded each and every day by the scriptures of Matthew 7:13. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction. And those who enter by that are many. For the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. Lord, our commitment to you is to make sure that we always honor you in each and every breath, and that we may rise up together, bringing your light into this world to suppress and destroy this darkness, to bring salt back to the saltiness, and to give us the spice and life and the freedom and power that you empowered us with. We ask that you'll grace our president with all that your wisdom that you can. Continue to grace Pompeo and his staff, and to continue leading and guiding of this country through a very difficult storm. We trust in your guidance, Lord, and we put all of our trust and love in you. And we say these things in Christ Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen, Bart. It's very beautiful. Thank you for that. Wow.
Oh, that sets the stage perfectly, man. I mean, this is our reverence and our loyalty to our true self is our loyalty to our creator, to this realm that we're here to adjust. We're not here to destroy it. We're here to build something, and we can't build anything, guys, if we do not attain and prevent them from taking away our freedoms as human beings, our sovereign right to pursue happiness. This country does not provide you the freedom to be happy. It provides you the freedom to pursue happiness. That is a big difference. And the left has made this so convoluted, and we have got to get back to simplicity, ladies and gentlemen.
So
Shady, that is just real quick here, but I'm sorry, Matrix, but Shady, that was so awesome what you just said. I mean, really seriously.
Thank you.
It does not give you a guarantee of happiness. It gives you the right to pursue happiness. Folks, that means that liberty is a constant daily fight.
Yes.
And that the pursuit of happiness, just like the walk in faith, is not an easy walk. For those that get convenient, our world of, well, I got to go here and get my Big Mac, and then maybe run by Carl's and get some dinner as well, and then I'll swing by the pizza parlor and
maybe go to the strip club. And that's what I want to.
You've been to? You must be up in Portland.
That's why I want to make sure you understand that that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, not hedonism or anything like that. Back in that day, happiness meant that an individual would have the freedom to use their time, talent, and resources to pursue the directions in life that they believed would bring them the most satisfaction, and would also benefit their family, friends, fellow man, and future generations the most. That's what happiness meant in this document.
That's incredible. And by the way, what's really important about that, Patriots, is that is so centered on the true values, the Judeo-Christian values that this country was built on, which is the principles that you're pursuing those pursuits that God gave you. You're becoming the master of the tools and the gifts that God gave you. And that's the principle of happiness. It doesn't say easy. It doesn't say lazy. It doesn't say get a monthly check from the government. It doesn't say burn the doggone place down when you're upset. It says pursue those things that will lead you to happiness.
That's right. And then, Q has told us about the Declaration of Independence. He's even quoted some of the words of it in the Q posts. And we're looking at the old guard. We want to get rid of the old guard because we're ushering in a new guard, which kind of brings up this Declaration of Independence and how it's so important to us and the movement. Because when in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, A decent respect to the opinion of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Very powerful words there.
Well, it's important too, Patriots, to really understand that in the framework of the Declaration of Independence, God is put above all things. And this is a very important principle in understanding the three primary documents of our nation. The Declaration of Independence establishes what we call moral law. And moral law is that we are all accountable to God, and that our guidance for even changing a government is led by God. In this moment in time, if we want to look at it this way, we are dealing with a Luciferian left that has seized control and is trying to establish tyranny across our nation. It is God at the core of all of this that is leading us to light, to reestablish the affirmations set before us in the Declaration of Independence. That's moral law. Then we get into civil law and the structure of the government. That's where we go into the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That's how man is supposed to manage the government by and for and through the people, always, though, accountable to God. What the left tries to do very diligently is try to argue that the Declaration of Independence is not part of the state documents. They look at the Declaration of Independence as a piece of paper. That's not true. The Declaration of Independence was approved by the Continental Congress, and in so doing, it became part of our national documents and the foundation of this great nation.
100%.
JD, where are you?
Well, I'm just in awe, really, of the moment that we're in, because I hear what, I listen to you guys, and you're speaking words that were written 244 years ago, and I just look around my country, and I'm astonished, gentlemen. I'll just be honest with you. I'm astonished at the way that people are capitulating to this tyranny, to look around and looking for other people to give them information or instructions, like they don't have any tools. It's very confusing to see my fellow countrymen in this state of shock and disillusionment, really, man. And what you're saying there with looking to God and the way that this document was written, another big part of our system is based on truth. And this gets overlooked a lot. Truth. Like, our court system is based on truth. You're swearing to tell the truth. Okay. You're putting your hand on the Bible and you're raising your hand and you're swearing to tell the truth. Our whole system wouldn't function if we weren't, as godly individuals, compelled by our nature to tell the truth. But that also creates a trap. The trap is the usurpers. The trap is the infiltrators. What do? They take advantage of that truth. They use that truth against you, because once you've revealed the truth, then you all of a sudden put yourself in a vulnerable situation to an evil person, you see? And so that creates this timidness. We're all timid. You notice how we're all like on pins and needles, like, oh, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? Oh, what's he think? What does she
think? Can I say I can vote for Trump? Can I even say that? Oh my God, I might get beat up.
Yeah. Right? So it's like that is very disheartening to see so many great patriots out there who are confused and lost. And I would, like, we're doing what we can to try to reach them. And that's exactly what these people were doing in 1775, leading up to the Revolutionary War. They were doing the same thing that we're doing right now. They were ostracized. They were the 3%. Most of the people didn't want to go to war with Britain. They were shunned on both sides, much like what you're seeing going on with your president. And I would like for you to just point to someone in your government, someone in your system, one person that is standing up, speaking up, and fighting for you. And they're really, from my viewpoint, there's only one.
Right.
And it's the president of the United States. And he's going by these documents that we hold so dear. That's what binds us to him. And then the left hates these documents. And that's what encourages the rage. You see, we're in this pinnacle moment right now, guys. And it's pretty epic if you pull back and take it in.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Those are powerful words. Patriots, think about all of the nonsense you're hearing from the left and read those words. They don't read them. They try to distract you from them. At the principal issue of this nation was equality of all. And what the left tries to do is throw a wedge in everything. They'll try to say, well, this person was a slave owner, or this person did bad things. Look, history is marred with failure, but it is through history that we learn about being great. That's right. History isn't an anchor. It's not our burden. It's our lesson and teacher of how to become better into the futures. Yes. So it is not every nation has some burdens. Every nation. The left will try to tell you that they can create, or there should be no regard for any in the past. They're fools. Those that ignore their history are destined to repeat it. And that's exactly why the left works so hard to erase the histories and ultimately wants to erase this document. Keep in mind that this document, once it came out and once it was signed, if it was found in the holding of anybody in any of the colonies of the United Kingdom at that time, the penalty was death. Right. That is how severe and how important this document was in the historical context of the world. Now, I know, Matrix, you said last night, and I think you should expand on this. You talked about a lot of the things that the businesses were being challenged with at the time of this document, very much like today.
Sure. You had people that, were throwing tea into the harbor, right? These were businesses that were having challenges going from the British system to try to get away from the British system while this Declaration of Independence was taking place. So basically, we're kind of going through the same thing that our founding fathers and people that were for America, not Britain, are going through today.
This is so true. Patriots, keep in mind, and we talked about this last week, but I want to keep coming back to this just in the printing of the document. So today we all joined here online. We're able to share ideas. We're seeing people share their thoughts live. This is amazing. We've created virtual town squares. And we can do this with a measure of anonymity, and we can do that with a measure of security. But I want you to roll back now to the period of the colonial days. None of this exists. The only way that you can read this document is if somebody posts it on a common square wall where postings are put where people can read it. If people are going to discuss this document, excuse me, they have to discuss it openly or in private rooms. But keep in mind that the British are everywhere. The British are being housed in people's homes because they forced their way in. The British occupy little contingents of every village. Talking to one another becomes almost impossible in the open without being heard. You have British that have spies built in all around us. We are in a time that if you spoke a word and you spoke of the Declaration of Independence, it's possible that you could be swept up by British troops. And the British troops were ruthless. They had no morals and no guidance. They were let to do what they needed to do. They even had mercenaries like the Hessians later that they brought in from Germany that were ruthless. They raped people. They burned houses. They actually killed Americans in their villages to create terror. So when you look around today, look at through the optic of the old and the new. The history tells us that we are reliving this event again. And just like then, we're being asked to muzzle through a mask, to not speak, to not join in groups, to stand 6 feet apart because they don't want you assembling. These are violations of your basic constitutional rights that all began with the Declaration of Independence, which gave you the simple words, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed with their creator within certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Also, another very important part to this document is that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That's a big statement. Is that happening today?
That's a big statement, and what Bards was saying there as well, and I connect that like to what we're seeing going on in this cancel culture reality, pulling down statues, the threats coming out against Patriots just yesterday with the accounts being taken down, Twitter specifically saying if you use a QAnon hashtag, Tucker the other night in his plea to the New York Times to not publish his address so that the Antifa doesn't come there and try to burn his house. The couple in Missouri that are trying to defend their house, they're being prosecuted. They are going against every single thread of our country that you can imagine. This is not willy-nilly. This is not, we're just want to take your AR-15s. This is the truth. They are showing us the truth, and your president has guided them into this trap. But this doesn't work if we do not stand up. This doesn't work if we do not act like Americans. This doesn't work if you do not take the mentality back that you are a sovereign and you are not a sheep and you are not a rat in a pen, and they cannot tell you what to do. It doesn't matter what it is. If you are not hurting someone or committing a crime, it is unmandatable.
And
you see that?
And to back up Shady,
free.
yeah, and to back up Shady, what he's saying, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
So this is important, Patriots, because that phrase right there, the left manipulates. And the reason they manipulate it is they separate the Declaration of Independence as a standalone document. Okay. What they try to say is that the Constitution is not tied to the Declaration of Independence. Therefore, they can justify their riots and the tearing of this down based on some fallacious concept that they're being suppressed. Okay. Yeah. This is Marxism. This is how Marxism works. You have to know these documents, Patriots. You have to know that they're not just independent, but they're linked, and they create a context, a foundational context for this entire nation. The left is on a rage right now, trying to tear down this country, and they're trying to justify it by saying that it's time for the people to rise up to tear down this nation. That's a fallacy. What they're actually saying is, we want to overthrow the Constitution of by and for the people and institute a professional tyranny, very much as it was in the colonial days, to force people to comply to our will. The entire principle of sovereignty is that state by state, the way that we live is shaped, but we're unified under an umbrella of unity as a common group of states, all 50 states.
Right. So one of the concepts is, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved. And that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, and establish commerce. And to all the other acts and things which independent states may of right do. I mean, that's pretty amazing right there. And then you've also got another piece of this document that's important, in my opinion, as we go through this. We got, let's see, we got the fourth. So we got, this document is just so amazing because it's stating out what we've got to do today. And, you know, we're going to do this at the voting booths, right? We're going to get out there, we're going to vote, and we're going to make sure that we get our president elected. I mean, this is the bottom line, guys. I mean, there's no way around this. We've got to get our government changed because they are breaking the Constitution and the laws. Now, do you want to get into that living Constitution?
Well, I want to touch on it some. And Shady, if I can lead it, then you just continue it because I think we were talking earlier. Is that all right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So, folks, there's a couple of things here. There's a quote we want to play for you, and it's from Scalia, and it's about our great Justice Scalia, God rest his soul. That really talks about the misconceptions of the left and how they've tried to manipulate this document into being a living document. Again, keep in mind that the left has taken elements of the Declaration of Independence. They take quotes out of it, and then they place that into their justification for doing things. So let's listen to this quote, and then we'll come back and we'll talk some more about what a living document is or isn't within terms of the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Stanton and Scalia, quote, "The Constitution that I interpret and apply is not living, but dead," close quote. Explain that one.
Much of the harm that has been done in recent years by activist constitutional interpretation is made possible by a theory which says that unlike an ordinary law, which doesn't change, it means what it meant when it was enacted and will always mean that. Unlike that, the Constitution changes from decade to decade to comport with, and this is a phrase we use in our Eighth Amendment jurisprudence, the court does, to comport with, quote, the evolving standards of decency that mark the progress of a maturing society. In other words, we have a morphing constitution. And of course, it's up to the court to decide when it morphs and how it morphs. That's generally paraded as the, quote, living constitution. And unfortunately, that philosophy has made enormous headway, not only with lawyers and judges, but even with John Q. Public.
There you have it. So Justice Scalia, who was wet worked, as we know, if you look at the emails on Podesta, talking about wet works and Scalia, passed away, and he interprets the Constitution in its original form. Then we had the, George Bush, believed in the living Constitution. It's just a GD piece of paper, right? And it's not. It's very simple. It's actually a philosophy that doesn't ever need to change, ever.
It's also a weapon, and let's not.
They use it as a weapon in the living form. Correct.
It's a weapon it's also a weapon for patriots against people that have the mentality such as some of your previous presidents or this dark overlord controlling system that we have right now. This document is a weapon against their narrative, against their thinking, against their plans for the future, and against their greedy nature that wants to just consume everything as opposed to build things, right? And so that's a mentality that is in the Luciferian mind, or that is creeping in our world. And we go back to real quick to a quote from Thomas Paine: "Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must, like men, undergo the fatigues of supporting it." And a lot of us patriots, a lot of people in America for the last 50 or 60 years, you have not been going through the fatigue of supporting it. The fatigue of supporting it would be relevant to what the men who wrote, created, and lived during this time in the colonial period went through.
That's right.
So this is really an important piece here about learning the documents. The one thing that the left is exceptional at, and I will tell you, when we talk about truth, the left is very exceptional at knowing their documents. They know enough of them. They don't know all of them. And I can assure you that, because I've read more Marxism than most of the people on the left. But what they do know, they know well, and they're able to use that against everyone as a weapon, because people are not educated on our founding documents. Patriots, if there is one challenge, and every week we're going to talk about a challenge, and I'm going to throw this out here this week, and we'll kind of push this out before we close the show again, or close the show today. But I'm challenging every single one of you to read this document and to make it and to print this document out and put it somewhere in your home. Put it somewhere where you can read it, and take time to read this document at least once a week, Patriots. Have your family read it. Have your friends read it. This is a powerful document. Let all of the things that are in this document settle in. And next week, we're also going to introduce, I've done this already on a podcast, and I'll link it next week, but I've already done one podcast where I actually updated the crimes to match the crimes of today. So we're going to look at as we continue this discussion, we want to look deep into what the crimes are, and we'll hit that next week. But you need to read this document, and it needs to be part of a daily part of your life, to see it, to think about it, and to take time once a week to sit down, read through it. It takes you probably 30 minutes to read through it, to read it well, maybe 15 if you're a fast reader. That's fine.
Yeah.
And when you do that, and just pour yourself a cup of coffee. If it's a little too stressful, pour yourself a glass of wine, sit back, and love what this document has done for each and every one of us.
And just realize, too, why Justice Scalia said what he said. He was telling people that they've invented an idea in the high court called the living Constitution to invent new rules and meanings. He was against it. Okay. This is something that you need to understand. The Constitution says what it says, and it doesn't say anything anymore, is what he said. Okay. So under the guise of interpreting the Constitution and under the banner of a living Constitution, judges, especially those in the Supreme Court, now wield an enormous amount of political power, continued Scalia, because they don't just apply the rules that have been written, they create new rules. Scalia pointed out to the High Court, meaning that the due process, legal procedure, the 14th Amendment, to invent new rights under a made-up concept of substantial due process. And that has allowed the 14th Amendment to become the gateway to legal abortions and other behaviors. Now, he did not believe that the High Court should be judging legal abortions. That should be across the street, not his court, not the Supreme Court. It should be in the other courts and state courts. So, I just want you to understand that kind of went away against some of the things that people think. But he's right. That decision, he doesn't understand how to do that. And that is not a Supreme Court issue. That's why we have an issue with our court today. It's been so distorted. The due process clause, and I quote, it's no longer a guarantee of process, but it's a guarantee of liberty, Scalia expounded. But some liberties of the Supreme Court has found it to protect by that word, liberty. Nobody thought constituted was a liberty when the 14th Amendment was adopted. So he really goes into some things here, and it's very interesting, his take on it. And they didn't like him because he wanted to interpret the Constitution in its original sense.
And he, by saying that the Constitution is dead, is a perfect way to think about it. That means that the Constitution means what it says. Very simple. And over the period of 200 years, they have manipulated the language. They've manipulated your schooling. They've manipulated all of the history. They're manipulating things behind your back. They are essentially running a fraud. They are running a fraud on you that your government has these powers, has these controls, has this ability, can do this, can tell you to do this. And then we drop back to this document and it says something very interesting. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Guys, do you understand the breadth and width of that statement? That is what we are doing. Q has pointed to this many times in a very specific manner. There is a bureaucratic nightmare that is like an octopus over our system, and it's strangling the life out of we the people. If we get rid of that octopus over the system, all of a sudden we can stand in our power again and in freedom. But if we cower, and if we duck, and if we move aside, or if we let someone shut us up, then you are not feeling the, as Thomas Paine said, undergoing the fatigue of supporting freedom.
Yeah, and we've covered despotism here on the Matrix Groove Hour because you are the most red-pilled audience on YouTube. Press 17 if you remember that video that we discussed on despotism. You can just Google despotism 1946 and watch that 9-minute and 57-second video. It is very amazing, folks. And I'll drop it into you guys there. Despotism is when, a political party or a government has uncontrollable powers, guys. And that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, we're not voting on should we do masks. They're just mandating it. Look at the 17.
So here's something I think that's important, Patriots. And I've put this quote, this is a quote I live by, and we're going to move forward real quickly to Theodore Roosevelt. That's Teddy Roosevelt, not Franklin Delano, so be clear about that. This is a quote that I think everyone needs to really embrace because it's at the center of all things in the Declaration of Independence. And it says this: to announce that there must be no criticism of the president or that we are to stand by the president, right or wrong, is not only unpatriotic and servile, but it is morally treasonable to the American public. Now, Patriots, I'm not telling you to go against President Trump, but I want you to hear something about this. President Trump is in the process of maneuvering and playing politics against a vicious tyranny that surrounded him. He is literally walking in a swamp of vipers and piranhas every single day. What he has to do to navigate that and to pull some of these clowns that have their head in the clouds wearing masks and believing the fear of the fake COVID pandemic is what he has to do. But us as patriots, when he does things that are against the narrative and against the principles of the Constitution, our role is not to nod our head and simply say optics, because that does him no good and it does this nation no good, and it does no service to the founding fathers that gave their life and their liberty for the creation of the first document, which is the Declaration of Independence. Our duty, our role every day is to keep the founding documents before us, to know those documents and to know what you're fighting for. When things step out of line, I don't care if it's your favorite congressman. I don't care if it's your best friend. I don't care if it's the president of the United States. Our role is to voice our place, to be heard. And if you remember what President Trump said on July 3rd at the speech in front of Mount Rushmore, where in fact Teddy Roosevelt's face is carved, and for good reason, he reminded us that it is time, patriots, for the silent majority to be loud. He's telling you that because he knows what he has to do to get these idiots that are walking around with masks and believing the fake narrative to wake up. He's telling you, be patriots. Be like the founding fathers. Stand up. Be strong. Accept that it's going to be tough. But in doing so, you're going to stand and be the voice of liberty for this nation.
That's right. And we can just look at a Q post today that had this image. In reality, they're not after me. They're after you. I'm just in the way. And it says, people, an informed, free-thinking public awake is their greatest fear. United we stand, Q. And that is why we're here.
So, patriots, it is time that all of us really embrace the responsibilities given to us in these founding documents. It's why we're creating this show. It's why we're giving dedication to what was, to remind us of what we are about to lose or what we can win. These founding documents aren't just living documents to change nearly however you want. Ask yourself this. It's a simple comparison. If the left is willing to rewrite the Constitution, why aren't they willing to rewrite the Communist Manifesto? They won't, because that to them is their sacred document. These are our sacred documents. We do not change these documents.
That's right.
We don't change them as a living document because somebody's got a hair up their nose and they think that it's a good idea, or because some lawyer's being paid off by some outside force to manipulate the future of this nation. We as people stand by what our founding fathers created, and until that system that was envisioned by them runs perfectly, which it has not yet, by the way, until it runs as it's intended and we grow and develop as a nation, only then do we sit back and we make collective, and when I say collective, being states and people coming together to decide the best direction for the nation. We don't legislate change in a constitution. That in itself is unconstitutional, and it begins with understanding the power of the Declaration of Independence, which is we deal with this as a nation, we deal with this as people, and it is time to overthrow the tyranny, and the tyranny which is before all of us is the left.
That's right. Yes. And, with Twitter trying to censor us, with, they're trying to censor AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon are trying to take Trump's text messages that you sign up for off the air. And they're trying to make us look like criminals. They're trying to make us look like bad people. And I want to just, we have information warfare happening right now. And I just want to play this real quick, and then we'll do our final thoughts.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Information warfare, guys. That was Andrew Breitbart, who broke the Wiener laptop investigation, by the way. So there you go. Shady Bards, I will hand it over to you for final thoughts and comments.
Well, I would like to really quick share this with you. The American's creed. I do not choose to be a common man. It is my right to be uncommon. I seek opportunity to develop whatever talents God gave me, not security. I do not wish to be a kept citizen, humbled and dulled by having the state look after me. I want to take the calculated risk, to dream and to build, to fail and to succeed. I refuse to barter incentive for a dole. I prefer the challenges of life to the guaranteed existence, the thrill of fulfillment to the stale calm of utopia. I will not trade freedom for benefits, nor my dignity for a handout. I will never cover before any earthly master, nor bend to any threat. It is my heritage to stand erect, proud, and unafraid, to think and act myself, enjoy the benefit of my creations, and to face the world boldly and say, this, with God's help, I have done. All this is what it means to be an American.
That's great, Shady. Wow.
Who wrote that, Shady?
That's called the American's Creed.
That's awesome.
That goes back a long way.
Yeah, it does. That's awesome. So, Patriots, let's just keep ourselves focused on our duty and responsibility. Right now, just like it was then, the British begin to shut down newspapers. They begin to make it illegal to print things. We're seeing the same thing happen again. Once the information begins to grow and the people begin to go strong, the first thing they try to do is silence your voice. They're using the mask. They're using social distancing. They're using the control of the social media platforms. Remember something. Every time you get on social media, just keep this in mind. Nothing in life is free. It is important to remember that. There has been this very convenient culture created around all of this that people assume, and this is the big word, don't assume, but they assume that simply because someone is out here like Twitter, Facebook, whoever, they're offering you a free platform that you're going to get your rights. You never had your rights. You're just finally waking up to the fact that you never had them.
That's right.
So, Patriots, this is the thing. Right now is a time to fight. If you see a Twitter account getting deleted or you see a Facebook account getting blacklisted, look, don't get your feathers in a wad. It's the war. Adapt. You have to be strong and remember what our founding fathers had to do to make these documents at the risk of being hung by the British. It was no game. You don't have that threat, at least not yet. And we aren't going to have that threat. So I want to remind you of 2 Timothy 1:7. For God gave us a spirit, not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. Patriots, that is your flame every day to get up, remember how much sacrifice was given and made for you to be in this moment. And it is now given to you, the torch from the past, to carry that flame forward to ensure that liberty lives far beyond us and into our generations yet unborn. And with that, Patriots, fight.
Amazing. Fight, guys. That is it. So tomorrow, next Wednesday, we'll have another Bended Knee with Bards of War, Shady Groove, In the Matrix. That was very beautiful, guys. I really appreciate it. So make sure you get that Declaration of Independence, print it out, read it to your children.
Stand up for it.
And basically the first and the first third and the third that is are the best paragraphs to read, and we're going to go over the middle tomorrow, next week. I keep saying tomorrow, next Wednesday, with the Common Sense, Bards of War, Shady Groove, In the Matrix, guys. Thank you very much. See you next week. Common sense. Think logically. Address to the inhabitants of America. Join Bards of War, Shady Groove, In the Matrix. These are the times that try men's souls.